Good evening and welcome to tonight's show. I'm your host, Tina Dawson, the owner of True Blue Designs, and I thank you so much for tuning in. Please like and share and let everybody know we are on the air. We are streaming on our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel at True Blue Designs. Everyone has a journey, and within that journey, everyone has a story. And the purpose of this platform is to give ordinary people a place, a space where they can come and talk about their life lessons and their journey and how that they learn through the life lessons they are where they are today. And I want to invite you, the viewer, to contact us and let us know if yourself or anyone else that you know would like to come on the show and share their journey, their life's journey. A lot of people have said that this is a place of healing. It's a place of, it's kind of therapeutic to really open up yourself to the world just to share what you know. And I just want to thank those guests that we have had on for the last 3 or 4 years. We started the show at the end of 2019, if I'm correct. And so we're going on year 4. And a lot of people have given us great testimonies about how the show has really encouraged them and inspired them and how it has changed their lives, just the guests that have been on the show. So I wanted to take a moment to encourage you to come on the show or write us, let us know about anyone that you want us to reach out to be on the show. Tonight's guest is returning to our show. We actually interviewed her in February of 2023 of this year. And at that time, she had written a piece in an anthology and shared a little bit of a traumatic event that happened in her life and what she learned from it. And it was a great interview. But tonight is going to be another good interview. She has written a book, Keep On Keeping On, Your Growth. And growth is an acronym, will make room for you. And her latest memoir, Bernice, captures the essence of human resilience and the transformative power of hope in the face of adversity. Take time to encourage others to tune in and be inspired by sharing this live interview with those you know. Please help me give a warm welcome to tonight's guest, Miss Bernice Johnson.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Fine. How are you?
I am doing good. Thank you so much for returning back to the show and coming on and catching us up with what's been going on since the last time we've seen you in February. How's the family?
The family is great. Thank you for having me return. It was such a pleasure the first time of being here, so I know it's going to be awesome tonight. The family is the family is great. We are actually things is there's a lot that I have to share tonight. The
Okay,
family.
okay. Well, that's good. It's good that you're smiling and laughing and everything is on the upswing.
Yes.
We want to start off by I mentioned in the opening that you were first on the show in February.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what's been going on since the last time we've seen you, because I heard you got some good news.
Wow. Okay. Since February, well, of course, you know, the book that I'm on the show about, Keep On Keeping
Mhm.
On. I have written, well, collaborated in 5 other anthologies.
Wow.
All 5 of them are best-selling and international best-selling anthologies. I also collaborated in a poetry anthology,
Hmm.
and that particular poem that I wrote has been advanced to the finals in the national poetry world. So I'm waiting to see whether or not I won or not.
Congratulations. That is awesome. That is like you have been a busy bee.
Yes, yes, I have, and I'm currently working on another anthology. So yes, I've been busy.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, and you haven't been sitting still. That's a lot of work.
Yes, it is busy bee.
Yes, 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 yes. So, so how's your daughter doing? Just a little recap. Is she doing well?
Yes, my daughter is. Oh, you're gonna make me cry when you ask me that question. My daughter is doing amazing. Since the last interview we had in February, and I told you, we touched briefly about me going from crisis to clarity. Um,
Uh-huh.
it has been a 365-degree turn. Nobody cannot tell me God is not real. My daughter has she's went through therapy. She's back into college. She's headed into the nursing program, and she is a straight A student.
Yes. Now listen, for the viewers that are watching and the ones that are listening via podcasting, you have to go on. You can find it on all your podcasting sites and on our YouTube channel. Just type in Bernice Johnson and listen to the first interview, and you will be rejoicing with her. This is awesome. And I'm going to tell you, when she's ready, your daughter has a place on the show so we can talk to her whenever she's ready.
I've already spoken to her about it, so she knows that she's whenever she's ready. I
All
think
right.
she's getting there, so she'll be ready sooner or later.
Well, let's talk about keep on keeping on. So let's talk about your journey to writing this new book, your new memoir.
Well, oftentimes people tend to tell you your past is going to define you, or where you come from, or any
Mhm.
mistakes you made is going to define who you going to be in life and where you're going to end up in life. Well, this particular book tells you that is not the case. It gives you all the things that I've encountered over my life journey,
Mhm.
where when I approach it, when storms came at me, the big mistakes that I've made in my life, which was also a part of my growth process.
Mhm.
It helps you to understand that just because where you currently are, where you come from, the mistakes you made, that does not define who you are. You are who God say you are, as long as you stay obedient and walk in his word and do the work.
Oh wow. So tell us about some of the things that you've experienced that um, guided you to put all of that in this book.
Well, what actually started this particular book, when I wrote that first anthology, the one that you and I just briefly discussed back, when I was on your show back in February, I kind of debated because I wasn't sure that I wanted to air out what was going on, to kind of show my authentic self, because a lot of the stuff that I blame myself for, because
Mhm.
I thought the mistakes that I made in my life growing up, I tried my best to shield my kids from making the same mistakes.
Right.
But instead, I seemed to kind of make it harder for them, because they was trying to live up to standards that
Mhm.
was a little bit of above high standards. I had standards set a little bit too high for them, because I just didn't want them to get hurt.
Right.
So at that point, when I became authentic and shared my journey, um, people started reaching out to me, thanking me for actually being transparent, thanking them because there has been some people that has encountered some of the similar situations that I had during my crisis, at that my family crisis at that time. So that led me to believe that I needed to open up and to share with others that just because certain things happen in your life doesn't define you as who people think you are. You are who God said you are. So
Mhm.
I kind of put my, should I say, where my growing up challenges journey along with my adulthood challenges, and kind of combine it together in my life experience, so people can know that, hey, even though I came from a small community of less
Mhm.
than 800 people,
Oh
we
wow.
we didn't the total we didn't have much, accessibility to a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that can either hinder you or make you want to seek for better.
Right.
So, and so with that being said, that what led me to actually write this book, because just because I came from that little small town with less than 800 people, with a little less of, we didn't have, we didn't have access to internet. Um, for some years, there was only one grocery store that we had there. There was only one pharmacy, and most of those were in town. If you lived in the country and if you didn't have transportation, then you weren't able to get to those what we call finer things in life. Because
Mm-hmm.
that's
And what was the small town that you were raised in?
I was raised in Bowman, South Carolina.
Okay, so South Carolina. Okay.
Yes, and it's the capital of farms and dairies.
Okay,
Yeah,
agriculture. Okay,
exactly. Yes,
okay. So yeah, so when you grow up in rural areas like that, you're kind of you well, you ain't kind of, but you are limited to a lot
yes,
of the things that the big cities or the nearby cities have, and
exactly.
they're more advanced than um, the area that you were raised in. And sometimes when you go searching for what you think is better, you know, if you don't have any guidance, sometimes you can go searching, but you can go down the wrong road.
Exactly. That is so true. That is so true. You can definitely go, because if you don't have the right people to guide you that's in your corner, you can
Mhm.
definitely go down the wrong road.
I know in your title of your book, the subtitle is Your Growth Will Make Room for You, and growth is an acronym. Let's talk about your acronym of growth.
Okay. Well, growth. The G stands for grow where you're planted, which means that if, like for me, example, coming from that small rural town, you have to plant your feet, grow roots, and find the best of the best and go with it. You don't have to be pulled into the negative. You just have to stay focused. You have to understand that, like a perfect example, when people see a rose that grows into concrete,
Mm-hmm.
that rose found root to break through so it could flourish to become that beautiful rose. Same
Mm-hmm.
thing. So that's what my G stands for. My G stands for grow where you are planted.
Okay.
My R in growth stands for recognize the root cause. You have to sometimes understand that there are certain situations, certain individuals, um, that you can be around that can cause you to go astray. It can
Mm-hmm.
be the music you listening to. It can be the TV shows that you look at. It could be just your environment itself. You could find yourself around the wrong people with the wrong mindset that can cause that could contaminate your mind. So that's where the recognize the root cause. That's the R in my growth. O is observe your FOIA method, and
Mm-hmm.
FOIA stands is also an acronym. It's
Okay.
focus on yourself every day regardless. Even though we tend to help others and we want to help others, but we have to understand we have to be whole. We have to look out for ourselves first in order to pour into somebody else, because we cannot pour from an empty cup.
That's right.
So that's the O in my growth. W is when you weather the storm to prepare yourself for greatness. Weathering the storm can be hard,
Mm-hmm.
um, very hard. And the reason why I kind of get stuck on weather the storm, because my book title "Keep On Keeping On" actually generated from my grandmother, who inspired me by she would always tell me to keep on keeping on. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
just lost my grandmother on October 2nd. So weather the storm, thank you. So weather the storm is a little bit hard because I had to weather the storm just recently to make sure that she was feeling the way that I wanted her, that I knew she wanted to be feeling. But it was a storm I was going through at the time. So that
Mm-hmm.
W stands for weather the storm, to prepare yourself for greatness. Then is T, track your progress. You can definitely track your progress because you can look at where you started from. Like for me, example, back in February, you look at from where I started from in February
Right.
to where I am today. I started with one book in February, and I've been in 6 total, including my own book, as
Yeah.
of October. So
Yeah.
there's always room to track your progress. So any little progress, even if it's small progress, any progress is progress. And then H stand for harvest, the fruit to feed others. Harvesting fruit to feed others is, again, I will use myself as example. I share my stories, my trials, my tribulations, because that's a blueprint for somebody else. That can help somebody else that may be going through a similar storm, but didn't know how to handle it. But they can look back or to see some of the steps I took to handle it. So I actually is bearing fruit to feed others. So that's my acronym of growth.
Right, right. Well, that is awesome. Let's go over the first one we have is grow where you are planted. And then we're going
Yeah.
to talk a little bit more in depth about the acronym. And I think I want to, let's see, hold on. I want to ticker it at the bottom of the, hold on. I want to scroll it. So while we're talking, um, okay. So let's see, hold on. I just thought about it. I said I'm gonna add these in so when people are watching, they can see it. Okay, so we'll do the first one. So the first one is grow where you are planted. Um, you know, a lot of times we find ourselves in certain predicaments or certain situations in life, and I've always been looked at life as whatever situation that you're in, you're either your glass is either half empty or half full, right?
Yes.
So it's all about your perspective,
Yes.
right, of whatever you're going through, and the way that you look at it is a I'll say is going to be the fuel
Ye-
of how
Yes.
you get through it, right? Because if you look at it as always negative, then it's going to take you longer to get through it, right? But if you look at it as the glass is half full, then you may see the opportunities. There's
Right.
always opportunities in anything that you go through, right?
Yes.
So, if you look to see the opportunities and that you're going through, growing where you're planted, their seed where you are, right? And if you look at the opportunities and you water that a little bit,
Yeah.
I think that it'll start your perspective will start to change and you'll start to get out. So let's talk a little bit more in depth about that.
That's true. You said it. You said it pretty much the way it's written. Yeah, absolutely. There are going to be times where you find yourself in situations and you may not be in the ideal situation. You may not be living where you actually want to be, but that doesn't mean you have to stay there. You just have to learn to adapt to that situation in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you adapt to that situation in a positive way and see the opportunities there until you can do better or move away, then just take that opportunity. You grow where you're planted, wherever you're planted, wherever your feet is planted at that time, you make the best of that situation
Right.
and you find a way to flourish. You tap into the resources, because sometimes a small community is not a bad thing. Not not by any means that I'm saying it's a bad thing. It's just that there are times where, just like you said, those seeds are there where you are, and you just have to water them until they grow to what you're looking for in life.
Right. Was there any situation that you could discuss where in your small town or as you were growing up where you just had to decide that I'm going to make the best of where I am because I know that greater is coming, or I'm here to do my purpose is greater than where I am.
Yes, I could think of a lot of situations. One in particular, I remember me as a single parent. I knew that that's not where I wanted to be. I knew that's not where I wanted to, at that time. At that time, I only had one kid, but
Uh-huh.
I'm a mother. I'm a mother of three. I didn't. That's not where I wanted him to grow up. Not because it was like it was a bad area. It was the fact that it was limited to a lot of opportunities, and I
Mhm.
want to give him more opportunities in life than I had. So I just, I I lived there. I started going to school, college attempt. I had my son. I started going to school, to college, maybe about 15 miles away from there.
Mhm.
But and then I end up also getting a job about the same distance, 15 minutes away from there. But my family was there. So they were there to help me as far as babysitting, childcare, taking him to school, picking him up from school. So during that time, I was able to go to school, get my degree, um, get one of the jobs I was looking for at that time, so I can build financially and better myself till I can get to the point where I can move away to where I wanted him to be, so he can have more opportunities. So that's one of the situations where I just had to do what I had to do. I stayed there. Um, I went to community college. I graduated from the community college. I still stayed there for a couple of years after that. I took a job about 15 minutes away from home. I had family there that was there to help support. So I took the opportunity, to grow where I was planted. That's where I was at the time. So I made the best of the situation.
Yeah, and that also goes for people who are working, a 9 to 5. You may be working a job, and that's, that you have your eyes set on greater, and you just know that this is where I'm planted for now. But you make the best out of it. I've always been told that, what you do with less determines how you're going to do with more, right? And so, I remember when I was working a job, and I had to. You look at your current situation, and you take certain positions to make do. You have a goal in mind, and you take those situations, those jobs, to make do to get you situated here so that you can go there, right? So you have the finances that take care of the home or whatever it is, but you still have your goal set on whatever it is, the goal that you have for bettering your life. So that is so important to make sure that wherever you are now, set some goals for yourself, right? And then grow where you are now, and let that be your leverage to go to your next level.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the R was recognize the root cause, right? Let's talk a
Yes.
little bit about that.
Recognize the root cause. That can be anything ranging from the people you be around, the music you listen to, the TV shows you watch. You have to recognize what's keeping you stagnant. What what's hindering you from wanting more. Is it that what you see all the time is what you believe? That's how your life gonna end up. I remember for myself, um, there was a friend of mine that she would always call me, but it was never anything positive. It was always about somebody else's business,
Mm-hmm.
or what somebody else did not do, or what they could have done. So I remember asking her one day, I said, well, um, what did you say, as far as, did you try to tell her, tell them any different? Did you try to
Mm-hmm.
inspire them? And she said, well, that's none of my business. I said, but it's none of your business, but You're calling me to tell me their business. So,
And you
and it was
entertain them, and you
right.
entertain them.
Right. Exactly. I said, so that lets me know that I said, if you cannot say anything positive to help them, then you don't need to have a conversation with them. I say, and then I don't need you. I say, I love you dearly. I say, but I don't need you. I say, I have enough going on. I don't need you to call me to feed me, to poison my spirit when I'm trying to go somewhere in life. I just didn't need it. So we haven't, so after that conversation, we kind of disconnected for a while. I still see her every now and then. We still speak. But back then it was that I just couldn't take any more negative because I'm already trying, I'm a single parent. I'm trying to stay focused. I'm in college. I'm working a 9 to 5. I already putting a burden on my parents, watching my kid, picking them up, dropping them off. So sometimes you have to understand that you have to recognize what or who may be keeping you stagnant. So that's why I put you recognize the root cause.
Right. We're all a product of our environments. And, if your outlook is to have peace and you're not having peace, you got to recognize the root cause of why you're not having peace.
Peace.
You have,
Exactly.
you have to recognize the root cause of why you are where you are so that you can get in tune with that and so that you can deal with it, right? Because that you do not deal with, you will repeat, right?
Exactly.
It just comes back. Sometimes
Yes.
it comes back in different forms. So a lot of that is about self-reflection, I think, and reflecting about yourself and the environment that you are in. To understand, every year between September and December, I purge. And I've been doing this since Damon, he's 29 now, and he was probably 2. And
Okay.
so for 26 years, but September and December, I purge. If I have an art with somebody, I try to pick up the phone, let us talk about it, agree to disagree, so I don't take it into the new year. I purge clothes, I clean up my house, I purge stuff. It just makes me feel lighter.
Yes.
A lot of times, if I feel like I'm depressed or down, I look at my environment. If my environment is not orderly or together, I try to do something about it. But I really pay attention to it every September to December. And for
Okay.
26 years, it's been working because when I go to watch night service, I make sure that when I take communion that first Sunday and when I'm bringing in the new year, that I'm not bringing the old stuff with me. And it's
Okay.
working so far. But you're right. You got to recognize the root causes and you have to deal with whatever the root cause is. You have to deal with it, right? And
Yeah.
that's why, having good therapists, having good counselors, mental health advocates, is so important to have, a team of people in your life to be able to lean on when you're going through certain things.
Yes. I'm gonna try that purge thing. That sounds good.
I'm telling you, it's been working for 26 years. I'm not stopping. Been
I'm
working
starting to purge tomorrow. I'm starting to purge
You're
tomorrow.
gonna start purging tomorrow.
Yes,
Well, you let me know how it's working for you.
I will.
Okay. So the O is observe the four-year method. So we're just going to dive a little bit deeper into the four-year method and this part of the growth acronym.
Okay. FOIA is an acronym and it's focused on yourself every day, regardless. But
Mm,
if you think about FOIA at a house, when that's the first part of the house you enter before you reach the main part of your house. But you stop in that foyer and you take off your hat, you take off your gloves if it's cold, you take off your jacket and you put away your umbrella. And sometimes you leave your shoes. But you start unpacking all of those extra layers away from you so you can feel free before you step into your house to get that peace.
that's
The
right.
foyer mentally works the same exact way. you have to learn how to unpack stuff from work, mama stuff, daddy stuff, brother and sister might have some stuff they done gave you, your girlfriends, your homeboys, your homegirls, whatever the case may be, whatever that may be that you have poured into you mentally, you have to unpack it.
Mhm.
Leave it in your practice that for your method. Because you need to have that mental space clear for yourself, so you could be able to address your own thoughts.
Right.
Your be transparent to yourself. What do Bernice really have going on with Bernice? Not what Bernice has to deal with the kids, not what Bernice left at work. All of that stuff, you need to unpack that. So the foyer is pretty much you just resetting yourself so you could renew your mind, so you could restart all over again.
Well, you're no good to anyone else if you don't take care of yourself first. And
Exactly.
when you were speaking, what came to my mind was when you're on an airplane and they're going over the instructions about the
Mm-hmm.
airbag, the
Yes.
yeah, the airbag, and they're telling you, they always tell you to put it on yourself first,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you know, in 2023 and the we all dealt with COVID. We've had to be so many things to so many people, and a lot of time who goes lacking is ourselves. So, like you said, it's important for us to focus on ourselves regardless,
Mm-hmm.
and it's okay to put yourself first. It's not
Yeah.
selfish. It's okay in certain situations to put yourself first, and make sure that you're healthy and whole, so that you can take your healthy and whole self and help somebody else,
Right.
right? Because
Exactly.
hurt people are hurt people, and if you're
Yes.
broken, right, you're not going to really be able to help the next person as much as you could if you were healthy and whole. So that is very important. Observe the four-year method. Okay. So the next one, the W, is weather the storm to prepare for greatness. We're going to talk a little bit more about that.
Okay. Weathering your storm. There's sometimes storms are not always bad storms. Some storms come for elevation. I'm going to give an example that just recently happened to me. Just like I said, I lost my grandmother October 2nd. She is the wind beneath my wings. Now, I don't do a whole lot of, I know I'm an author. I just became an author over a year, but public speaking was not one of my things. So I was going through my storm when my grandmother passed away. Uh, Mind you, I'm still going through my storm, but I had the opportunity to speak at my grandmother's services, celebration of life. Now, that was one of the hardest things I had to do during my storm. But after I did that, and I think I did fairly well for not even breaking down, because I think I broke down after it all happened, after everything was over with. But
Mm-hmm.
I had so many people to reach out to me to say and ask me for just to speak to other people, to
Right.
speak to an audience, because I did so well at my grandmother's services. So I'm like, and I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like, at my lowest point during that storm, God was preparing me to give me that strength
Mm-hmm.
for people to reach out to me to talk to other people. So that's an example that I would give for the weather the storm for great to prepare for greatness, because that just happened to me just October 7th.
Right. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about embracing where you are, right?
Yes.
And you can, and also about seeing the opportunity in the negative. Um,
Yes.
and what would have happened if you decided to let somebody else speak at that moment?
Right.
you didn't choose to speak. So, I think we're all used as a vessel. Some people choose to be, choose it in a negative light, but we're all used as a vessel. And I think, our sole purpose is to help other people. And, through the things that you've been through and the testimonies that you have, they are encouraging. And, you by you opening up and sharing with the anthologies first, and then now you have your own book. And now you stepped out of your comfort zone and, went to something that was a little bit difficult and spoke at your grandmother's celebration of life. It opened up another door because you got out of your own way.
Yes.
Yeah. So, weather the storm to prepare for greatness. All right. The T is track your progress. This is important.
I'm tracking your progress. Just like I said earlier, it doesn't matter if it's small steps. Um, Progress is progress in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you can actually see, like I said, even if it's a small increment of progress, it's progress. You're not where you were before. And as for me, I've I can actually track my progress. I remember doing my first anthology, and I had to do my bio.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have anything that I thought of as importance to go on the bio, especially being an author, well, becoming an inspiring author at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, and now I look at my bio when I'm asked to send my bio to others, it's grown.
Right.
So I can actually track it. So you can actually see your accomplishments, even if it's small accomplishments. You may be living in a I remember when I had my younger kids, I remember living in me having two kids and myself with three people. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. But then later we end up moving into a 3-bedroom house. So you can kind of see your progress. It
Mm-hmm.
may not be major significant progress, but like I said, progress is progress. You just have to, be obedient. Just keep keep the faith, keep moving forward, because like I say, progress is progress. You might be drinking water today, and then next week you might be able to buy some orange juice. It's progress.
Right.
So you just have
Right.
to so there's a way to track your progress.
Yeah, and when you were talking about that, I was thinking about journaling, because when it comes to your overall life, a good way to track your growth is through journaling. I watched Oprah show when it was on the air quite a bit, and I remember she interviewed Tyler Perry, and he
Mhm.
was going through some stuff with his dad, and she had told him, have you thought about journaling as a way to get it out of your head onto paper,
Mhm.
so that you can kind of like move past it. Because a lot of times it's hard for us to move past it when we carry it in. So ever since that episode, I have been journaling, and it's awesome to be able to pick up a journal from years back and to read an excerpt, and you look at where your life is today, and you're like, wow, I am not that same person. So that's one way to track your progress is through journaling. Um,
And
and
vision
you're right,
boards.
moving forward. Even if you took a couple of steps back, right,
Mhm.
you're still not where you used to be.
Used to be.
So,
Exactly.
you'll be able to look back. And I think also meditation. Meditation and just sitting still with yourself and giving you taking some quiet time to be able to reflect on where you are, and maybe where you were a month ago or where you were at the beginning of the year compared to the end of the year. It's always good to take time to reflect, because that's another way to track your progress too. But you have to be still, you know. So that was just what came to me when you were talking about tracking your progress. And then the A
And
is harvest the fruit to help others.
Harvesting your fruit to help others. That's more when you have been placed in certain situations where you can now give back. Even if you can tell a story of a journey of a tell a story of a storm or a situation you went through,
Mhm.
um, that could be a blessing to somebody else that might need to hear it. I know I've shared plenty of my stories in my anthologies that I've participated, collaborated with, and I've
Mhm.
had people to say, "Thank you for sharing, sharing your story because, either my daughter went through that, or I went through that, or I know somebody else that went through that. You gave me a better insight." And it's just not, it's just not it's not about financial. It's about you actually being able to help reach back and pull somebody else forward. Reach back, to give somebody else a helping hand. Reach back, you might be somebody else umbrella in their storm that they're not sure how to get out of it, or they're not sure where to start to think about how to get out of it. Because I know I told my story in my first anthology. I had somebody at work reach out to me. She was thankful for me speaking on it because she
Mhm.
had a similar situation with her daughter. So that gave her a little bit more clarity and understanding that she wasn't the only person that was going through it. So that was going through that type of situation. So those are type of um, fruits that I bear, and if those are type of fruits that I'm talking about.
Yeah, and it's always good to have the spirit of discernment to
Mhm.
discern who you should share with and when you should share. But when those opportunities come knocking,
Right.
I think there's a greater purpose when you share, and you have to know when the right time is, and then allow the work to be done through you. Um, you know, Even from the first time we did our interview in February, people were touched by your story. And, I think as you continue to write in your anthologies and people reach out to you to put you in the anthologies and you write more books, we were talking earlier before we went live that sharing a lot of times can be therapeutic uh,
Yes.
for you and for the receiver, right? And it's good to know that I wasn't the only one, or
Mhm.
because sometimes depending on what you go through, you feel like you're the only one, or you're on the
Yes.
island by yourself.
Yes.
I remember my daughter called me one day, and she was telling me some stuff that was going on with her, and I said, "Girl, that's all you got? Let me share a story with you." And I had her laughing, and it strengthened our relationship because she knew, hey, I know she's mom, but she's down to earth and she doesn't mind sharing. Because sometimes, like you were saying, we protect our kids. We don't want our children to go through what we go through, what we have gone through, or make the mistakes that we've gone through. But we got to share. We got to open up, and
Mhm.
as they're able to receive it, we got to be able to share that information with them so they understand that yes, I'm mom, but I'm human, right?
Yes.
And that I make mistakes because, like you said, it will set the bar high, and the expectation of what their life should be is high.
Yes.
But when we show them that, hey, we're human too, it kind of lowers the expectation,
Yes.
and they're like, okay, I can make a mistake, and mom or dad is going to be okay with loving me through that mistake, right? Because
Exactly.
they shared some stuff with me. I wish my mom would have done that. I wish
Mhm.
she would have. She shared stories with me, but not really the hard times. I had to find that out on my own or find that out later. And now that I'm more mature and I've had those last when she passed in 2017, I've had those times that we could talk about
Mhm.
certain things. It made me see her in a different way,
Okay.
right? Because she chose to share those things, and I wish that would have came a little bit earlier, sooner in my life. But I'm glad I did have the opportunity. But I'm just saying that as a parent, we should open up to our children. It's worked. it's worked that,
Yeah.
I shared certain things and they understand that, I'm not superwoman, I'm mama. And
Right.
I'm human too. And, it makes them, um, it makes it easier for them
It
to
does.
open up when we start to share some of the stuff too. So
That's true. Because that's true. Because that's what my daughter and I relationship is so much better because
yeah, because you
she thought,
share. That's
yes,
right.
she thought I was superwoman. And then I told her about some of the mistakes and
Yeah,
choices I made in life. And she's like, wow, mom, really? I'm like, yes, I am human.
right, right. In your book, you talked about embracing your inner strength. In what ways can we tap into that to start to embrace our inner strength?
First and foremost, you have to know who you are. You have to understand that sometimes people try to validate who you are, but what people say you are is not who you are. You have to know for yourself who you are. You have to know what you want to be. You Because if you don't tap into your inner strength as far as having the faith, understanding that you make mistakes, you are human, just like we talked about,
Hmm.
um, and know that God is God. He don't make any mistakes. Like my and my uncle will always say, God doesn't make no junk. So you have to understand that you are beautifully and wonderfully made, and that strength lies in you. But sometimes it lies dormant, and it doesn't. Sometimes, and unfortunately, sometimes it take a storm for us to find that inner strength. But
Hmm.
once you find that inner strength based on, you have to have the faith. You have to have the desire. You have to have the willpower. You just have to tap into self and know that you are who you want to be, not what somebody else said you are, not what somebody else labeled you as. You have to have, and some people willpower is stronger than others, but if you keep the faith and keep God first, you will definitely find an inner strength, because I know for sure that's where my inner strength comes from.
I think that when you trying to define who and whose you are, I think it's a journey.
Yes.
And I think that it's a journey that you will be on until you take your last breath,
Yes.
because you're always self evolving, you're always evolving, and that definition of who you are today is always changing. I was listening to a YouTube video right before we got on the air. And on the video, and I forgot the name of the book, but it was talking about how you are really the captain of your ship,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you really determine what the outcome is going to be, right? And so while you're on that journey of self defining who self is, right, you can now create a roadmap to decide who you want to be and what you want your life to be and what you want it to look like. What do you want it to hold? The person who is really in control of that is you.
Right.
It all starts with you. And I told my children, I said, your life is nothing but a culmination of the choices that you make. If you make a choice and it takes you left, get up, brush yourself off, and choose again. That's all your life is, and that's all your life experiences are, is a culmination of choices. But again, it's the choices that you make, right? So I'm a firm believer that you are the captain of your ship. And once you mention faith and you have that relationship with God, He will download you and guide you where you need to go. But even with that, Bernice, it's still your choice. It's
Mm-hmm.
still you have the opportunity to make those choices on whether or not you're going to listen or not, and whether or not you're going to go left or right. So I just, I wanted to touch on that because, the embracing your inner strength, I think, like you said, is a journey.
Yep.
And it doesn't happen overnight. But as you grow and mature and go through things, you learn what's important and what's not, and you start to learn about what is important, what your inner strength looks like. And I was talking to somebody earlier today, and we were talking about your piece is priceless. And I said, when your grandmama said that, you didn't understand it. But now
Right.
you're older, you totally get it. And your piece is absolutely priceless. So going back to what you were saying earlier, you got to figure out, recognize the root cause, and you got to do whatever it is. If your piece is important to you, you got to do whatever it is to keep your peace.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. And don't let those mistakes you make define you. You just brush yourself off and get back up and try it again.
Yeah, you mentioned in your book that our comfort zone is not an ideal place for growth. Your comfort zone is not an ideal place for growth. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Now, I personally feel that your comfort zone is not an ideal place for growth. If I'm not mistaken, I want to say I think it's Steve Harvey. If you plant a tree in a flower pot, it's only going to grow. The roots is going to grow as wide as that flower pot. So that tree is going to become stagnant. It's not going to grow to its full potential. But if
Mm-hmm.
you take that same tree from that flower pot and put it in the forest, so you just uproot it from its comfort zone and you put it in the forest with all the other trees that's growing, it's going to grow, it's going to multiply 20 times the size it was in that small comfort zone. So I said that to say this is that sometimes when you're in your comfort zone, you're used to the norm.
Mm-hmm.
What you see is what you get. What you see is what you expect. But once you pull yourself away from your comfort zone and put yourself someplace else, it's more opportunities. You're gonna have to understand. You're gonna have to start relying on that inner strength. You're gonna find that inner strength. You're gonna understand there's more opportunities that you have because now you're no longer in a place where you're familiar. Like my dad always say, you either gonna sink or you gonna swim.
Right.
So when you're out of your comfort zone, you're gonna try your best to stay afloat. You're gonna find that way to swim. You're not gonna sink because you want to thrive. You want to be able to expand yourself. You're gonna grow. When you're outside your comfort zone, you have no choice but to grow unless you don't give up. But giving up is not an option.
Yeah, and your comfort zone is where you're stagnant.
Exactly. You're gonna
So
stay stagnant.
so like you were saying, if you put yourself, in an environment where you can grow and be flourished, you're not the smartest person in the room.
The room.
Your life, and I've done that before, and your life it takes off. I mean,
Yes.
it takes off quickly. Because you goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You're a product of your environment.
Yes.
So and it is also good to put yourself around people who won't allow you to be stagnant.
Right.
If they have it, they'll watch your walk and watch your path and your journey. And if they see, hey, I hadn't seen you in a while, what's going on? You need people around you to encourage you. So, I totally understand what you're saying, that it's hard to grow when you're stagnant and when you're comfortable. But if you just uproot yourself and get around other people that are either going where you want to go or they're on their way to where you
Exactly.
want to go, then you'll get into that environment and become so inspired
Yes.
to really grow and to do better and to do more. Um, so, what encouraging tips would you like viewers and listeners to know from your book?
Well, and with that question, I'm going to read this little snippet out of my book.
Okay.
There are always going to be situations and circumstances that create a less than desirable environment. Depending on the situation, life can be tough and knocks you down. That is to be expected. The question is, do you have the fight in you to get back up? Not knowing what life has to offer doesn't mean you stop living your best life when the road gets rocky. Even the roads travel become a little slippery when wet. Your knees may get scarred and your heart bruised, but use these wounds as seeds. Water them to stimulate your growth. You can choose to let those wounds define you or spark a fire within you. Life is what you make of it, and you owe yourself to be the best version of you. I believe the harvest of the best version of you starts with your growth.
Wow. Yeah, starts with your growth. So where can someone, if you or a listener wants to get a copy of the book, where can they purchase a copy of the book?
You can purchase a copy of the book two ways. It's on Amazon.com, which is Keep On Keeping On. Just put in Bernice Johnson, Keep On Keeping On. It'll pop up. It looks like this. Or you can DM me on Facebook,
Okay.
Instagram, reach out to me, and I can get you a signed copy.
Okay. And so is Bernice Johnson author on Facebook and Instagram?
Yes, Bernice Johnson, author.
Okay. Now we're going to have, and we're towards the end of the show, but I wanted to say, if you are watching live, put in the comments where you are watching from, and let us know what you thought about the show. She is going to pick someone that has from people who have left comments, and we are going to send a free copy of the book to you. So make sure that you like and share and subscribe to our Facebook and our YouTube page, and then leave us a comment about the show. Did you enjoy the show? What did you get from the show? And let us know where you were viewing from, city and state. And then Bernice will pick someone out of the comments, and we will send a copy of the book. Bernice, it is always a pleasure talking to you. You were telling me earlier how we are just so connected.
Yes.
And we are going to be buds forever.
Forever and forever.
Inspiring. You are very inspiring. And, you have been through a lot. And I just appreciate you so much for having the courage to share, on a platform like this, sharing with the world the things that you've been through, the journey, the triumphs.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to hear that your daughter is doing well. I cannot wait to talk to her. OMG, I just can't wait to talk to her. And tell her that I said congratulations. And she has a place here whenever she is ready. I really appreciate you sharing that. That is a powerful book. What was the name of the first book? The anthology. Let's let people know that.
It's the anthology is More Than a Conqueror. It looks like this.
Okay, so that's the anthology. I think you were on page 47
yes.
in the anthology. And
yes.
It's
my crisis of priority.
She only had not that many pages to tell her story, but wow, what a powerful story it was. And it was a testimony. So I just want to say that. So More Than a Conqueror, and keep on keeping on. Bernice, I thank you again. And I thank the listeners and viewers for tuning in tonight. I hope you found that this interview was inspiring and encouraging, that you can keep on keeping on, and that your growth will make room for you. We are going to sign off for tonight. We thank you so much again for viewing. We will see you all in a couple of weeks with another live show. We are signing off, and Bernice, you hold on, don't go anywhere.
Okay.
All right, and everyone
Thank
else, be safe, and we will talk to you the next time we are live. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.